For the mind, child is curious, he can comprehend from the internet, you've got it going. He can find out just like the just-in-time learning. It's a curious child, has a problem, will comprehend from the internet and be able to solve it. For the body, we have outdoor sports, I think free play, open play, very important for the physical growth. Sometimes I think we're missing the soul, we're missing awareness about yourself, and we're missing the enjoyment of silence. And I think that's important for to be a part of curriculum, to be a part of being extremely beautiful, happy, well-rounded individuals.
Love that, Aarti. Excellent. From curriculum perspective, as Professor read, right, from just in case to just in time, there are some changes which are required, practical changes. I'm saying it from as not an educator, but not even from technology perspective, but as a parent. If my child is going to go to further study somewhere, they need to know basic things about, say, banking. How do they get into housing, for example? How can they manage themselves on that? Now that, a little part of their studies, maybe 11th, 12th grade, some of these are not there. Now making that shift, how do you make them trainable to some of these are practical things which are very, very, important. As you said, you can learn, we learn Pythagoras theorem, we don't know what to do with it. Right? But if you learn banking, it's going to help you in some or other way. So there are some shift, as parent I would say, is required in the curriculum. Technology can do help. Today we have seen there's plenty of curriculum floating into the marketplace. There needs to be a nexus of good to get together and probably create something where probably millions of dollars are not wasted and probably leverage for better learning outcomes and better learning experience for these students. I think that's something which I feel from technology perspective, which is something which is very critical.
Thanks. So, taking on from what he said, the CBSE did actually introduce stuff like banking and retail and tourism and insurance and security and other such courses. Unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, they didn't pick up. The number of children who were enrolling into these were very small. I think some of it lies with the actual building the knowledge. People did not know about it. Schools were not having teachers to teach it. So it's a much bigger issue than just saying that CBSE did not do it. But I think one of the big things is, like Professor said, about irrelevant learning. There's so much of irrelevant curriculum in the schools, in the higher grades as well, where are we learning, where are we going to use this in our lives? Just in case is not needed. We don't need to learn just in case of whatever it might be. And that's where I think a big problem that occurs is when teachers want to build purpose in a lesson. One of the things that I talk about when I'm visiting teachers and visiting my schools, I try to tell them that when you're starting a lesson, is there a purpose to the lesson? Why should a child feel like they want to learn what you have to say? If there's a purpose to it, whether for trigonometry, if you're going to talk about the cell phone and how it connects to the GPS and the towers, and that's how we learn trigonometry, that's a purpose to the lesson. Or for example, if you want to teach English, you may say, okay, today I will teach you how to write a 200-word essay. I don't care. In fact, I can be told, which movie did you watch this weekend? Oh, you watched Tare Zameen Par. Did you really like that? What did you like the most about it? Oh, Bum Bum Bole. You like that little boy who was dancing like that? Oh, Amir Khan, oh, lovely. And what was it all centered around? A story. How would you like to learn a story of a film script? Maybe you can write one day. That's again building purpose into the lesson. But a lot of the things teachers, and forget teachers, even experts will struggle to find purpose with, because what is the purpose of that curriculum that we are basically making the students learn? Yeah.
In society, we have various metrics in which we measure success, right? And one of the metrics is about financial success. How many of you in this room agree with me on financial success? Metrics of society, you're saying, how do you measure financial success? Very important, right? So, the Carnegie Institute of Technology did a research and concluded that 85% of a person's financial success is due to his ability to negotiate, to be able to communicate and lead. These these are the only three things, they said. Communicate, negotiate, and lead. So if you were to just think about it for a minute and say that if society looks at financial success as a metric and 85% of it is due to these three reasons, why bother about that 15% which is technical knowledge? So the balance 15% is only technical knowledge there. So the point that I'm trying to make is that it's important that content really, it's about curriculum, about what we teach. Of course, all my panelists said about relevancy. Yes, absolutely, we need to be relevant for that context at that point in time there. I've always felt that whether it was the US or whether it's India, textbook publishers actually drove content, really. And we started thinking about content as subjects and subjects as chapters, and from there came periods and all of that there. All of that was driven by the textbook publishing industry. I don't know how many textbook publishers are in this room, but really that. So the change, and this change, somebody asked that question, who will drive this change? I believe that you answered that question when EY is hiring, so it's really industry driving that change as well, and you can see that there. The content will be very, very relevant, and we will make content, the changes will be dramatic, and that is absolutely essential. And you will see that in the coming years that no content will stay static. We will not use the same things for kids for 5 and 10 years. It will change very, very rapidly.
Sorry, can I, on the same point, right? The certain skill set that's required is changing. The way the traditional jobs are not going to be existing in future. So instead of looking at some of the technologies like machine learning or artificial intelligence taking over human beings, in fact, why don't we create that so that those skill sets used by the child or the student is going to help that make it a much better place for us. So those technology are also creating jobs in a different way. So I think there are a lot of conversations around AI being taken over and automation being taken over as jobs, but in the other side it's also creating a lot of jobs, right? So not to worry. Gary Kasparov said machine and human will coexist. It's not future, it's present, right? And he's defeated super computers couple of times, multiple times, right? So it's not here to take away. So some of the changes, again, back to the curriculum part, linked into that is to make some of those changes, including, telling even the children to understand from that perspective, or at times even parents also, that, that shift is required in the curriculum, or even the thought process for that matter, so that, we are ready for the future.
So yeah, I would like to take off from where Sanjeev just left. Whether we like it or not, AI, algorithms, advances in genetic engineering, nanotechnologies, biology, all of this is shaping the way the future is going to go. So definitely what we're doing in classroom is very irrelevant at this point in time. So what should we do? Should we add another subject? Is that the solution to how to address relevant curriculum? Or should we ask ourselves from a clean slate, is there another way to do it? I'm not sure I have answers, but I do have situations that when I think about bothers me. A lot of our Indian kids go out in the Western world to do college. They are a product of our education system. They understand that content and marks and grades make them successful in student life. When they start to work, I'm sure finance will take over. But in young college life, all the Indian kids look after is good grades. Today, statistics has it that the largest number of death in young adults is suicide, not accident. It's the product that we're putting in the market. The students that go from India, when they go to the Western world, they're so completely disconnected with the reality of education. Not to say that's very relevant, but we are so much behind, outdated, slightly obsolete, that our kids are struggling. There's a huge amount of depression on campus. There's a huge amount of anxiety on campus. Kids are, when I say drugs, I'll say on both sides, kids are choosing to do drugs to escape, they're going to psychologists that give them drugs to calm down. It is a wide world out there for kids that is very, very scareful. It is so scary. They don't have solutions. They're out there alone. In the Western world, they are dealing with AI and the changes even faster, more rapidly, and they have no solutions. So I dare say that what we are doing in the classroom today, we need to help kids think right. If we don't do that, if we don't provide them the armor to deal with the fast-changing world, they will not be able to cope up. So curriculum is not just what we teach them. Curriculum is how we shape them in those 14 years that they are with us. And no matter how many times we say that 70% of the time they're at home, the fact is we as teachers have equal amount of influence in shaping the mind of a child. And I think we need to look at curriculum in the classroom from that aspect, in building a youth, a citizen for tomorrow, or not just mark-driven or excellent intellectual capabilities. I think we have to look at holistic human beings, which is an emotional makeup as well.
I'll start from where Professor Mitra left, Oxford Lakes. It's always interesting to have a geographer in the panel and saying that Oxford Lakes are not important. Teaching Oxford Lakes are definitely very, very important. Students should know what is around them, but in the but the context in which you explain Oxbow lakes, like maybe telling them that these are the ponds created by nature for animals during the dry season when rivers dry out, will help them relate to what it is. Coming on the curriculum, first is we need to understand that there's a difference in syllabus and curriculum. Syllabus is something which is from point A to point B, whereas curriculum is more dynamic, more vast, and more flexible. Unfortunately in India, ICSE and ISC have done no research in the last 30-40 years. What the father learned 30 years back is exactly the same the son is learning or daughter is learning, barring a few things added here and there. CBSE for a long time has been a tennis ball between one government and the other, has not evolved as much as what we would like to. The only good thing which has happened in terms of curriculum in India but has been put into the back burners is the National Curriculum Framework, which was created by Professor Yashpal and his team. Something which was given to us much before International Baccalaureate was introduced in India, if we consider International Baccalaureate as somewhere more progressive curriculum today. That's the problem with us, that any good research, good things which come out in curriculum, they go into the back burners. And to a great extent, we all as educators are to be blamed for some extent, because we all attend conferences, we all have discussions, but when we go back, we do not implement. Once those implementations start and it triggers a chain reaction, governments will have to change. For example, the textbooks which are given to the students today are not ideal from learning point of view, because black and white is the worst color from learning point of view, and all our textbooks are in black and white. Apart from that, we also need to see that it's not important or relevant to know what happened in history, but what is more important is how it impacted at that particular time, and if something related to that happens today, how it's going to change the world. So I think we need to, when we look at the curriculum, we need to look at the holistic curriculum of a school. There is a set curriculum which is given by all the educational boards, but there are certain things which we as educators can add into that and make it a little more dynamic curriculum without affecting what we can't change. So I think we need to look at that as well. Thank you.
Okay, so to summarize again, I think there is generally the unanimity that we need to re-examine what the contents are and to look at the usefulness of the content, and I suppose the ease with which it can be acquired. That, I mean, Is it something that you necessarily have to spend an hour in class, or are there other ways to get to that? Also, we looked at technology and technology-related futures as a obvious continuous addition to curricula as we go along. So, given that kind of point of view, okay, I think looking at the clock, we could take about 2 comments or questions or comments from you. I'm sorry that it will have to be 2. Let's try the white shirt.
Hi. So I just had one thought. I agree curriculum is outdated in many ways, but often we have to see the best that we can do with what we have. Hearing all of you speak, you've all beautifully contextualized curriculum that's 30 and 40 years old. And that's clearly why everyone here are leaders of institutions. What we see on the field is a fundamental problem of getting all our educators to think like that, right? So you can always contextualize Oxbow Lakes, but how do we train our educators to constantly be on top of it? The first thing that comes to my mind, Professor Mitra, is the soul is great, but how do I know my educators are going to be asking intelligent questions? I almost feel there's going to need to be a sheet for them to do that, right? So I think it begs the question of, is there training then that's required, and far more deep training into the things that the skills that our educators need to be able to take anything that might be in a textbook, but make it interesting for the children using methodologies like the SOAR, right? And I think that will also impact assessment quite drastically in the long term.
I think that's a very, very good comment actually. In fact, we didn't touch upon the subject of teacher training or educator training in the context of all these things that we're talking about. And I do feel that that's something that's worth keeping in mind, definitely. Okay, one last comment over there. Yes, you look back, yes. Yeah.
So my question comes, I come from Bangalore, and what I see in Bangalore is Korean pop is really popular among students. So what internet is also doing is, at least in the higher secondary grades, the specialization in learning, it is bringing down from college level to the higher secondary grades. So no matter, we can always say that this is the curriculum we want, but children also have a perspective now because of the internet, and they have a perspective on what they want to learn. And that age has come down. So how do we tackle that challenge? Because students are learning Korean. I see that at least on the Facebook groups where parent communities are there. So they are creating their own learning paths and their own curriculum. So how do we tackle that from the schools?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with your sentiment and your observation on that. I think it's because of 2 reasons. Very quickly, one is, what is the worth of going to college? That's I think changed a lot in the last decade or so. I think children can sense that. I go back to the university for 3 years for what? What is it that they're going to tell me that I can't pick up right now? And that huge increase in confidence, I think, has come from the kind of work that I was talking about. That children who deal with the internet regularly, and particularly those who do so along with their friends, have a feeling, and sometimes it can be actually an over expectation that they can actually pick up anything. So it's a question of, okay, I want to grow up to be a bot builder, and I want to make bots. He doesn't think he needs to go to the university at all, which is actually only partly true. It's, if you ask me, I think from my old school programming days, I would say it's only partly true. You do need a bit of university for that. But yes, today you can pick up a whole lot more. Alexa can make you a bot builder probably a little bit quicker than the university can. So I think that's what is adding to the confusion, but there's not much you can do about it except to explain to the children that you recognize it and that they need to decide on what they wish to be and then take the decisions accordingly. And to top it all, there's the problem of their parents who still want them to be doctors and engineers and architects. But the numbers of those parents are now reducing as the younger generation become parents, so hopefully that problem will solve itself. Well, I mean, we should have gone on a little bit longer on this, but we can't because we need to go to the last of the three topics, which is pedagogy. So we talked about assessment and the associated problems, and we said yes, there's change required. We don't quite know what the change could be, and my suggestion there is, well, we need to start experimenting amongst ourselves, maybe form subgroups inside which can tackle that issue and report back with concrete findings. This works, this doesn't work, whatever. You all have schools, I don't have one, so you actually have an advantage. It just needs a bit of time. Then we talked about curriculum and the need for change, but I don't think we were quite sure of whether we've got that right or not. So I do have that problem, that if I go by just what I am saying, that you look at a piece of curriculum and you say, is this going to be useful for me? What would happen to me if I went through life without knowing this? You'll find lots of things where the answer is nothing. I'll be fine. But does that mean that you should learn those things? Should you not, for example, know what the solar system is? So, I mean, I could make a case myself against my own argument to say you can go through life without knowing what it is, but should you? So, I feel that maybe there is scope to say that in the human mind, there are certain things we simply like to know, irrespective of whether we need to know them or not. And perhaps our list should also include those things that we come to know because we like to know them, they're interesting, you know. Then maybe poor old Oxbow Lake can come back in. So let's move on to the last bit here, which is that, okay, given these thoughts, like quick thoughts on assessment and curriculum, now comes what happens inside the school. So after all this, when you go walk back into your classroom, what are you going to do? Okay. So once again, I turn to my panel. Let's go this way. That we got a school principal starting this off. So I would put it this way. So what? What do we do next?